Laith, you just came back from southern Lebanon. What did you see and what did you report on?
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for having me on your show. And I would like to send my congratulations to the Lebanese people, the Iranian people, people of the axis of resistance on the successes to force the United States and the Zionist colony into a ceasefire. What we saw today, we actually started our travel down to the south around midnight last night when the quote-unquote ceasefire came into effect. We drove down. There was already thousands of people not waiting for the permission from anybody, trying to get down to their villages. In fact, even though both the Speaker of the House, Nabih Berri, leader of the Amal movement, and officials of Hezbollah issuing statement telling people don't go down because the Zionists are a vengeful enemy and you cannot trust them, wait till the morning. People still went down. So as we were driving down, there was thousands of people lined up on the streets on almost every intersection up to Nabatiya's town, which is the largest city in the central sector of the border region between occupied Palestine and Lebanon. And then we started driving around, trying to check on those cities and towns and villages that were abandoned under the bombardment of the Zionists. There was massive destruction. But to see all those people coming back joyfully, dancing outside their homes, sitting down in the rubble, smoking shisha. And, this showed us how much the connection of the people to the land is in Lebanon. There was a few things that we saw that I don't think anyone has reported on yet. One of them is we got to the Beaufort Castle. It's a Crusader castle just outside Nabatiya city, near Nabatiya city. It's called Arnoun Castle in Arabic. And when we got there, there was locals that were removing Israeli flags from top of Beaufort Castle. And we, in the beginning, didn't understand how these Israeli flags made it into the Crusader Castle. This is like north of the Litani River. And what we were told is that in the early hours of this morning, the Zionists sent four, not quadcopters, but those drones that have 8 actual blades, huge ones, each one of them carrying hastily made rods with tripod legs and Israeli flags, and one that had actually a surveillance dome. And they landed with these drones on top of the Beaufort Castle, which looks over the whole of the south of Lebanon and much of the area around Nabatiya city, in order to make people feel or lie to themselves that they made it north of the Litani River. And we saw those flags. The locals threw them off the cliff. Remember, just last week, the Zionists fell into an ambush at the bottom of the valley under Beaufort Castle when they were trying to cross the Litani River. They were ambushed and they lost many of their soldiers, many injured, and they abandoned all their equipment, including very heavy machinery, 3 heavy machineries, all these canoes, all these temporary bridges that we're trying to build over the Litani River. So it's clear that ambush that they fell into, it itched deeply in their heart that they wanted to come and make this fabricated win by planting these flags by the use of these drones. Another location that we visited that we thought was very telling about the battles that happened over the last 45 days was the town of Debin, which is just one town north of Al-Khiyam. And Al-Khiyam is a very famous village on the border, directly on the border with occupied Palestine and the Hula Valley. And during 45 days, the Zionists were unable to capture Al-Khiyam or enter it. So what happened is that they went through a Christian town that is mainly controlled by the Christian supremacist Phalange and Kata'ib party that didn't have any Lebanese resistance Hezbollah members in there to protect it. Those Kata'ib Christian supremacist parties let the Israelis go through Marja'yun to get to Dibbin and try to kind of cut the supply route for the resistance into Khiyam. And now what has happened is that the Israelis were scared of sending an armored column, so they sent in a special force, infantry special force, into Dibbin, but they were already spotted by the resistance, and the resistance lured them into the village. And as soon as the special forces entered into two homes to begin stationing themselves in the village, they were bombarded from all sides by the resistance, and there was a literal massacre of the invading forces, and that required a huge waves of bombardment from air by the Israelis to try to extract their trapped invading force. And in this crazy bombardment, Dibbin has a historical castle in it, and also a graveyard for French soldiers that perished in Lebanon in 1941 during the uprising across of Syria and Lebanon against French occupation. The Israelis dropped a bunker buster, the largest size of these bunker busters, onto the graveyard hosting these French dead soldiers, and wiped it off the map. There was a crater that is at least 40 meters wide and 20 meters deep. The marker for these graves, there's even a statue there for these soldiers, all destroyed. It's almost 80 years since the death of these French soldiers, and the Lebanese people, although they fought the French to leave, still respected those graves, but it was the Israelis that destroyed them. So in general, what we understood from looking at the few scenes of battles that we visited was that the Israelis had huge losses. This is also, of course, proven with the videos that Hezbollah released over the last 40 somewhat days. At least around 200 tanks destroyed or out of commission, above and beyond all their other heavy equipment that they lost, the armored vehicles and jeeps and what have you. So, we look at this and we can wait to see more and more of the videos that are going to be released for sure right now by Hezbollah, since they don't have the worry of trying to bring the videos through a battle zone to the editing teams. So we will see more of that in the next few days. The last thing I would say about what we saw there is that the Zionists were trying to still destroy, detonate houses in villages that they still occupy right now before they have to leave. And throughout the day, we were hearing huge explosions of houses that are being detonated in villages across the border that the Israelis are still stationed in, but will be leaving soon.
I want to talk about the tanks. So we've seen images of Israeli soldiers leaping from their tanks and fleeing. We don't know a number, but it's certainly significant. The tanks that were disabled or destroyed by Hezbollah. We also saw Israeli columns of tanks almost bumper to bumper. I know from covering war you never do that. You space your tanks out. I'm curious why Hezbollah was so effective in taking out tanks. I believe they were taken out by drones. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So Hezbollah was using drones, FPVs that, like the ones that have been used also in the Ukraine war, the ones that are very simple with an attached bomb at them and you just drop it. That's one way. They had also all these suicide drones that would crash into these tanks and have shells attached to them. They also were using their ATGMs, and Hezbollah is considered the most, expert military force in the world in the use of ATGMs. We watched how they were
Explain
shooting.
what those are for people who don't know, Laith.
Yeah, anti-tank, missiles like RPGs, but much more advanced. That there's a camera on the nose of this missile, and it's guided by hand and can evade any attempt to take it down. And we watched throughout the 33-day war and the Solidarity Front with Gaza in 2024. All those amazing videos of Hezbollah fighters hitting pinpoint little cameras on the bases of the Zionists looking into Lebanon. So, the Russian military who built those ATGMs were saying clearly that they don't even have soldiers that can reach the expertise of Hezbollah fighters in those use. So, there's two things that can confirm to us that the Zionists had huge losses. One, of course, is that in the admittance of the Zionists in June 2025, they said that they lost 1,000 tanks in both the battlefield in Gaza and in the battlefield in Lebanon. And of course, the Israeli military has around only 2,000 tanks. And the other thing that proves to us that they've lost even more since this battle happened is that we started seeing Merkava's, not the latest versions, the Merkava 4, but Merkava's 3. Those are like almost 10-year-old. So clearly the best tanks that they had were, very much hit in those battles in Lebanon and Gaza in those 2.5 years. And now they were having to use older stock. The other thing about those columns that you described, Lebanon is blessed with a topography in the south that makes it, just that topography and geography of the south, a defense mechanism, okay? It's not a flat territory like Gaza, and it's huge territory. It's not a small strip like Gaza also. And when we look at the geography of the south, there's clearly a few paths that any armored columns can go through. It's not like they can fly, these armored vehicles. They have to go either through the valley or try to go on top of ridges of mountains. And the ridges are full of villages and so forth. So they have no choice but to go through specific paths, and Hezbollah was ready for them because it's the logical paths. It's not a genius thing that they have to come up with some new ideas of how to invade South Lebanon. It's the same repeated tactics that they've had to use since the 1970s, as you mentioned. And Hezbollah had prepared a lot of ambushes, a lot of mines, a lot of IEDs, and they managed to destroy these columns as they are advancing. Also, when we look at the videos of Hezbollah taking out these tanks, it's clear that from all sides, Hezbollah had spotted and knew the advancements where they're coming. The last thing I would say is that today, as the Israeli military was leaving the outskirts of Khiam village, they walked into a minefield or an IED field, improvised explosive devices, and it blew up on them. This is after the ceasefire. And according to Israeli sources, they have many wounded in this battalion, including those who have lost limbs. And I would say every time the Israelis admit something like severe wounded or so forth, it means that they have dead, but they're not truthfully telling about it.
Where do you see this going? Have covered many ceasefires established by Israel. There's not one that they don't violate. You mentioned pressure from the Trump administration, but it's pretty clear from the rhetoric out of Netanyahu's office that they're not done. What do you see happening?
Look, this has been an ongoing 100-year war, and it is anchored in Jewish supremacy, and it's anchored in imperialism that maintains that Jewish supremacy on the land of Palestine. The Jewish colony wouldn't be able to last one day in front of the children of Gaza if there isn't a non-stop financial, political, and military support for this Jewish colony. And we saw what we are seeing today is the end of Western hegemony as a whole. Everything that we saw with the genocide in Gaza and the wars since October 7th, where the apex of this 100-year war in terms of the projection of power of the West and the Zionist colony. And from this point on, it is a retreat for both the empire as a whole and its favorite lapdog. Now, does that mean that it's going to end tomorrow? No. Does that mean that we're not going to have more wars? No. But it just means from this point on, it will be the Jewish colonists and their sponsors that are going to be suffering more than us. And with every new wave of this battle, it will be more suffering for the West, more suffering for the Jewish colonists, and less for us, until we're fully, completely down from the apex moment that we saw with the threat of use of nuclear weapons against Iran, which the United States had to retreat from. So when we look at this moment, because we saw all this 100 years before, sometimes we're unable to see what's coming. We feel that there's a routine, a repetition. But you know what? Iran controls the Hormuz Straits right now. It controls 30% of the oil output and gas output of the world. Iran forced a ceasefire in Lebanon before it opened the Hormuz Canal, and we have a new superpower arising. Does that mean the Israelis are going to just give up, or the Americans are just going to give up? That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that we are living right now a historic moment, probably the only comparative moment that we can look in our history to is that moment of the tripartite attack on Egypt by the French, the British, and the Israelis in 1956, which ended with the defeat of that tripartite invasion.
You're talking about the Suez Crisis.
Exactly, and the end or the demotion of France and England, the UK, from being superpowers to being secondary powers under the control of the United States. What we're seeing today is the end of the superpower of the United States, but there is no other European pole that can fill that gap. What is rising right now is a new world, multipolar world, that Iran is going to be one of the central poles of it, and the axis of resistance, including members like Hezbollah or Ansarullah in Yemen, are going to be the victors in this, the ones that are going to pick the fruits of this battle.